Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. It's a story about what happens when truth shows up too late and still hits like a truck. The second she walked into the room, I knew something was wrong. She never wore perfume at home. And yet that night, she smelled like jasmine and regret. She didn't sit. She didn't say hi. She walked to the bookshelf, the one I built with my own hands back in '94, pulled out the blue binder we hadn't touched in years, and dropped it onto the table like a gavel. "What's this?" I asked. Her eyes were glassy. Not teary. Glassy. Like someone who'd already decided the house would be ashes by morning. "I owe you something," she said. 37 years late, but I owe it. And then she opened the binder. I had forgotten about that thing. We used to call it our memory book. Birthdays. Receipts from our first road trip. The pressed napkin from that diner in Austin where we argued for 3 hours over nothing and ended up laughing like teenagers. I hadn't looked at it since before the pandemic. But she had. Only now it wasn't a scrapbook. It was a confessional. The first page had our wedding photo. Smiling, clueless, immortalized in sepia tones. But taped beneath it was a letter I'd never seen before. The date on it? 3 days before our wedding. Started with, "If you're reading this, it means I was too cowardly to tell you in person. I'm sorry for building our life on this. But I chose you, and I thought that would be enough to bury him." I flipped the page. Another letter. And another, written by her to herself. Some addressed to a man named Eli. Others to me. Dozens of them. All hidden behind memories I thought were ours. She stood there like a ghost watching her own funeral. I skimmed faster. Letters confessing how she used to dream of Eli's voice at night while lying in bed beside me. How our second daughter wasn't planned, but conceived the day she saw Eli again by accident and felt herself unravel. How she sometimes wondered what life would have been like if she'd followed him to Ohio in '87 instead of marrying me. Page after page, year after year. A private monologue that I was never meant to hear. Not until now. When I looked up, she was gone. Not out of the room. Out of the house. The front door was wide open. Her coat was gone. Her wedding ring sat in the middle of the table, right on top of our 25th anniversary photo. And all I could hear was the echo of her final words before she left. "I don't want to die pretending anymore." What came next? I still don't know how to explain. But it only got worse from here. The night she left, I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I just sat in that same wooden chair, staring at her ring. It was warm at first, from her skin, and then it got colder with each passing hour. By morning, I still hadn't moved. The binder was open in front of me. Page 46, a photo of our youngest daughter's 6th birthday, and beneath it, another letter. "Eli, today she asked why her daddy never builds her snowman like you used to. I told her she meant her uncle, but I knew what she meant. She sees you in her dreams. That terrifies me." The words slammed into me like a freight train. Uncle Eli, the mysterious friend, who visited twice in the early years of our marriage. Always smiling, always polite, never staying long. He used to bring handmade wooden toys for the girls. He always called me brother, which at the time felt endearing. Now it felt poisoned. I flipped back through the pages. I started seeing him everywhere. Eli at the camping trip. Eli at the christening. Eli in the background of a beach photo from 1992, half-cropped, holding our daughter's hand. How did I miss it? I opened a drawer and pulled out our old photo box. I hadn't touched it in years. Sure enough, Eli showed up again and again, but always slightly out of frame, like a shadow clinging to the edges of our life. The realization started clawing at my brain. He wasn't a visitor. He was a constant. The phone rang around noon. It was our neighbor, Helen. "Gerald, I saw Thelma last night. She was getting into a black sedan. Some guy was helping her with bags. You okay, hon?" I lied and said yes. But inside, everything was unraveling. I called our daughter, Mia. She was always close to her mother, almost defensively so. When I asked if she knew where Thelma was, she hesitated. She mentioned something about going north, said she needed to clear her head. "Was she with Eli?" I asked, voice trembling. The silence on the other end of the line was louder than any answer. That night, I listened to the old cassette from the attic. It wasn't music. It was a recording of Thelma's voice. And what she said on that tape would unravel everything I believed about the past, and about the children I raised. I didn't press play right away. I stared at the old cassette player like it might catch fire. My fingers hovered over the buttons as if they had a choice. But deep down, I knew I was already too far in. The binder, the photos, the ring, that was just the surface. The real rot was buried in her voice, in whatever she'd been hiding behind silence all these years. When I finally hit play, it crackled. For a moment, it was just the sound of wind and faint traffic, and then her voice, soft and nervous, like she was whispering through a time machine. If I ever disappear and you find this, then I couldn't take it anymore. I tried, Gerald. I really did. But Eli was the part of me I buried alive. And every day I hear him knocking. I froze. I married Gerald because he made me feel safe. He never made me feel like I was on fire. I needed calm. I needed structure. But I never stopped missing the storm. The tape continued, her voice shaking. When I got pregnant with Mia, I prayed it was Gerald's. I needed it to be. But deep down, I think I knew. Eli and I, it wasn't just a goodbye in 1986. We met again, more than once. And that time in Denver, I never told Gerald I even went. I paused the tape. My mouth had gone completely dry. I had always believed Mia was mine. She has my eyes, my laugh, or so I thought. But now, everything was shifting. My stomach knotted so tight I thought I might throw up. I hit play again against my better judgment. If this hurts you, I'm sorry. But I can't lie on my deathbed one day pretending I never wanted more. I loved Eli. I love you too. In a different way. But I've lived a double life so long that I'm not sure which version of me is real anymore. Then the tape went silent. No click. No end note. Just dead air. I sat there for hours, holding that recorder in my lap like a loaded weapon. Every birthday party. Every night she held my hand. Every anniversary card with a heart drawn in the corner. Was that guilt? Was that pity? Was I just a cardboard cutout of a husband she used to keep her real self buried? The worst part wasn't what she did. It was the realization that she had never truly been mine. And that someone out there, a man I barely remembered, had been sharing her soul the entire time. But what came next? That was worse. Because Thelma didn't just run off with Eli. She left behind something else. And it had my name written all over it. 2 days after she disappeared, I got the envelope. No return address. Just my full name on the front in her handwriting, the kind I used to recognize from grocery lists and love notes in my lunchbox. But this time it made my hands shake. Inside was a single sheet of yellowed paper and a photo I'd never seen before. Not digital. Film. It had that slight curl around the edges, like it had been hidden for decades. The letter read, "You never asked why I stopped talking about Eli. You never asked why I cried in my sleep for years. You thought silence meant healing. But I needed you to see what I gave up." I looked at the photo. It was Thelma holding a newborn. She wasn't in a hospital. She was sitting on the porch of a small, white farmhouse. Her hair was tied up, her cheeks glowing. But her eyes, they weren't the eyes I knew. They were younger, unburdened, wild. Standing beside her was Eli, shirtless, grinning like the world had already given him everything. In his arms was the baby, a second one. Twins. I staggered back. Twins? I flipped the photo over. In pencil, faint but legible, it read, "Summer, 1985, Rachel and Noah." Those names. I'd never heard those names in my life. I searched every cabinet, every drawer, looking for more. I tore through the attic, the garage, the crawl space. I found another envelope buried in a box marked old tax receipts. Inside was a birth certificate. Rachel Morris. Mother, Thelma Grace Morris. Father, Elijah Warren. There was no mention of me. No trace of my existence. I sat on the cold garage floor for hours, holding that certificate, and everything started making sense in reverse. The times she disappeared for weekends under the excuse of visiting her cousin in Milwaukee. The private calls she always took in the laundry room. The time she came home pale and trembling and told me she ran into someone from a life I thought I left behind. I had accepted all of it, trusted her, believed her, and now I was sitting in a garage, surrounded by legal proof that my wife had another family. One she never told me about, one she loved first. But it was what I found next, in an old suitcase buried beneath our winter coats, that truly broke me, because it proved I wasn't the only one she had lied to. The suitcase wasn't locked. It didn't need to be. Its contents were never meant to be found by me, or maybe they were, just not like this. It was old, tan leather with one broken wheel, the kind we used to travel with before rolling bags became a thing. Buried beneath our winter coats in the hall closet, it had collected layers of dust and silence. I unzipped it, expecting maybe old sweaters or Christmas decorations. Instead, I found another life. On top was a velvet pouch. Inside, a locket. I opened it. One side had Thelma's photo, young, laughing, free. The other, a baby I didn't recognize. Underneath that was a stack of postcards from cities she never told me she'd visited. Cincinnati, Syracuse, Charleston, all addressed to someone named R. Taylor. The handwriting was hers, but it was the journal that stopped me cold. Thelma's handwriting again, Messier this time, raw. I flipped through pages that described a woman I didn't recognize. She wrote about keeping the truth compartmentalized, about the ache of hugging one child while dreaming of another. She wrote about birthdays missed, about her guilt when Rachel called her mommy on a grainy video call while Mia was asleep in the next room. But then the final entries. Mia deserves the truth. She's not just his daughter. She's his mirror. The lies we told, the paper-thin walls we built around our family, they're cracking. And when they break, she'll never forgive me. I dropped the journal. My mind spun. Mia, my daughter, my world. I had built everything around her. And now I was staring at words that suggested she had been lied to too. Or worse, she was part of the lie. That night I called her. My hands trembled so violently I nearly dropped the phone. She picked up after 3 rings. Her voice was cautious, like she already knew why I was calling. I need to see you, I said. Silence. Now, Mia. She agreed. Hesitantly, I drove over. Her porch light was on when I arrived, but her smile wasn't. She opened the door slowly, eyes red like she'd been crying. Before I could speak, she said something I will never forget. Dad, I've been waiting for you to find it. Mom told me to be ready. She didn't invite me in at first. She just stood in the doorway, arms crossed like she was holding herself together by force. I wanted to hug her, demand answers, beg for an explanation, but all I could do was stare. My daughter, my little girl, the one I stayed up with when she had nightmares, the one I taught to ride a bike, the one I walked down the aisle. Now standing in front of me like a stranger, like someone who had already rehearsed this moment without me. I need to know everything, I said. She nodded slowly, opened the door wider, and gestured to the kitchen. We sat at the table where I had eaten Sunday breakfasts with her kids just last month. Now it felt like an interrogation room. I didn't find out until I was 19, she began, her voice thin. Mom told me when I came home from college for fall break. Said she didn't want to carry it anymore. That Eli was the other possibility. The words hit like static in my ears. She said she wasn't sure, but that the timing lined up. She made me promise not to tell you. Said it would destroy you. I hated her for it, for putting it on me. But I kept the secret. I stared at her, trying to breathe. You kept the secret for 18 years? She nodded, tears brimming. I didn't want to hurt you. You're my dad. You raised me. You were always there. DNA didn't change that for me. But it changed it for me, I whispered. It changes everything. She reached for my hand, pulled away. You let me go on thinking we were a family built on truth, I said, my voice cracking. Do you have any idea what that does to a person? I do now, she whispered. And I'm sorry. I stood up, knocking my chair back. The room spun. There's more, she said quickly. That journal? The one from the suitcase. That's not the only one. I froze mid-step. She kept one for every year, she continued. She gave them to a lawyer. Said they were to be delivered to you only if she didn't come back. What do you mean, if she didn't come back? Mia swallowed hard. Dad, Mom didn't just leave with Eli. She left knowing she wouldn't return. The lawyer's name was Harvey Langston. Downtown office. 3rd floor. The kind of place with brown carpet that smelled like paper and old decisions. I wouldn't have gone if Mia hadn't insisted. She gave me the business card like it was a key to something I couldn't walk away from, even if I wanted to. She made me promise, she said. He's expecting you. I didn't even call. I just showed up. Harvey was older than me, tall, quiet, with a tired smile that said he knew things about families he wished he didn't. He led me into a conference room and placed a sealed box on the table. Mrs. Morris left this with our office 2 years ago. She instructed us to release it only upon confirmation that she had left permanently, or in the event of her death. My stomach turned. She's not dead, I muttered. No, he said softly, but she's gone, and by her rules, that's enough. I opened the box. Inside were 37 journals. One for every year of our marriage. Labeled by hand. Indexed. Dated. It wasn't a last-minute act of guilt, it was a plan. A trail she knew I'd follow eventually. Each journal was wrapped in a ribbon. Some blue, some red, one black. I haven't read them, Harvey said. She insisted they remain sealed. Private. I reached for the first one, year 1, 1986. I opened it and instantly felt like I was intruding on something sacred and rotten at the same time. We danced at our wedding, and I smiled for the photos. But I kept wondering if Eli watched me say, I do, and felt betrayed. Because I did. I betrayed him first. The second entry hit harder. I didn't feel anything when Gerald touched me. I just kept thinking about what I lost. I told myself I'd grow into the marriage, like a coat 2 sizes too big. But it still doesn't fit. I shut the book. Harvey offered me a canvas bag to carry the journals. As I walked back to my car, it hit me. She hadn't left me with questions. She had left me with answers. Too many. Too sharp. And one journal in particular, the one marked in black, wasn't meant for me to read yet. But I would. I had to. Because on its cover, in bold ink, were 3 words. The final year. I didn't open the black journal that night. I kept it on my nightstand like it was breathing. Every time I reached for it, something in my chest clenched. But 3 days later, I sat on the back porch with a cup of coffee. The same porch where Thelma and I used to read the paper on Sundays, and I finally untied the ribbon. The first page began with a line that felt more like a whisper than a sentence. If you're reading this, I'm already gone in the way that matters. I took a breath and turned the page. She wrote about the silence between us in recent years. Not anger, not even resentment. Just silence. She admitted she stayed because of comfort, familiarity, fear. She called it emotional wallpaper. Safe, decorative, empty. But then something changed. This year, I stopped writing to Eli in my head. I started watching you make pancakes for Mia's kids, and I realized you were the only man who ever stayed. Through everything. I don't know why I ran for so long from something so solid. But Gerald, I loved you. Maybe not from the start. But by the end, I did. I had to stop reading. The tears came hard and fast. Not because of what she did, but because, somehow, after all of it, she found her way back to me. In the pages. In her honesty. The final entry said, I won't come back. I don't deserve to. But please, don't carry this as a punishment. You gave me a life I never earned. A home I never built. If there's peace for me, it's knowing that when I leave, I finally tell the truth. And that truth is, you were my safest place. That's when I forgave her. Not for the secrets, but for being human. I boxed up the journals, but I didn't bury them. I put them on a shelf in my study, because they're part of my story now. And strangely, I'm grateful, not for the pain, but for the clarity. These days, I see my daughter with softer eyes. I don't chase the past anymore. I'm learning how to let go of the life I thought I had and love the life that's still in front of me. And maybe that's the lesson here. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means you stop giving the pain a seat at your table. Thanks for listening. If you made it this far, I want to know, what's a historical event or personal story where the truth came out too late and changed everything? Drop it in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to Reddit Confessions for more stories that peel back the layers of real human lives.